Wow, Carrie, thank you for that introduction. I'm honored to be here. I'm also honored to be acting as the appendices for James Lindsay's speech. So that's what I'm here for today. Over the last day and a half, you've had a lot of speakers give you a lot of great ideas to think about. I promise you that's not what I'm doing. I'm giving you a little bit of a break because today I'm going to be calling you to, instead of sit around and think and absorb all of these things, I'm calling you to start acting. I'm also going to be giving you a little bit of background of how you can start to preserve our democratic institutions, start to be active in preserving the liberal order that we have inherited from our forefathers and our foremothers, and really just to start taking charge and exercising that hope that James left us with. So just a little bit about me. You heard some of that in the introduction. I want to talk about how I became a trans rights activist, the wrong kind, and I started by co-founding a nonprofit called the Gender Care Consumer Advocacy Network in 2019. The way that started is that a number of other people who have medically and surgically transitioned, we got together and we said, well, we've been harmed by some of these surgeries and medication. We did not have proper information to be able to make an informed consent, as Christina Buttons mentioned earlier. I thought the most brilliant part of the day. And what we really wanted to do is work with the clinicians and say, we know for a fact that there are gaps in the provision of the care, and we want to work with you to help close those gaps so that all of us are able to get the care that we're entitled to. Well, guess what? They didn't want to hear from us. So even though we knew that they were not applying the WPATH standards of care, they discarded them. Even though we knew that they were hearing from some of their patients, they weren't listening to them. Their job was to perform the surgeries on us and then not have any responsibility for the aftercare. So after a couple of years of ineffectively trying to engage with the clinicians, trying to get them to take more responsibility, to assume more liability for their actions, we decided that one of the things, or I decided that one of the things I needed to do is start getting involved politically. So over the last couple of years, I have testified in Indiana on sports bills and medicalization. We were able to get both of those successfully passed into law. We're defending them in the courts right now. We've done the same in Texas. We're doing it in Ohio. We know across the nation right now we've had successes in other states, and I swear to you that we are going to have most of the children in this country protected against these predatory medical and surgical interventions on children. That is a promise that's going to happen. And the ones that we don't win by passing legislation, we will win through winning lawsuits. So I want to tell you a little bit, when I got involved with this, everything I knew about how the legislative process worked, I learned from Saturday morning cartoons, how a bill becomes law. So it was a surprise to me that when I showed up at the legislature and was giving my own testimony, that instead of facing just a table full of dole-licking bored legislators, well, they were there, but there was also hordes of activists that were so unreasonably opposed to what we're trying to do. So in the case of these medical bills, it is only that we want children to be able to reach a greater level of maturity before their bodies are permanently altered by these medications. This, I think, is an extremely moderate goal, but we were characterized as trying to pursue a genocide, exterminate all transgender people, when really we're just asking, give these kids a chance to grow up so that they know themselves better before making permanent decisions that could damage them. But we had organizations like the ACLU, GLAAD, the Human Rights Campaigns, millions and millions and millions of dollars in the funds that these organizations have, And what we are just a group of activists, mostly parents, sometimes small amount of support from some national groups who consider this like just a distraction or a sideline. They're not committed to what we're trying to do. So we're dealing with very small budgets. We're trying to cut as many corners as we can to bring our wonderful detransitioners into these legislatures, to get them to meet our senators and representatives so that they can get the background and knowledge on these matters. Bernadette Ramirez-Boyles made the comment yesterday, detransitioner is absolutely key to this. So please, just briefly, can you give them a hand for their work? So what are you going to do? So you're sitting here right now. Everybody in this room, you're already getting up between breaks, introducing yourselves to other people, writing down your phone numbers, writing down your emails. That's exactly what you should be doing here. There are a lot of people who are live streaming. You are sitting at home. You don't have any way of getting up during the breaks and meeting each other. But what you need to do, get involved in the mailing lists. Start to find other people that are sharing similar perspectives or who have families who are in similar situations. Reach out to them with email and phone calls and start to talk to each other, get to know each other on a name-to-name basis, because your power of connecting with other people is the absolute critical starting point for getting any of your activism to go. So focus first, instead of having this idea like there ought to be a law, that's not your starting ground. Your starting ground is who's with me. So build those networks. I started my network by contacting one of our national small but very tough feminist groups. And I said, I want to do something in my home state of Indiana. Will it help you if I go and I testify? And they looked at my testimony. They helped make improvements. And I got to know some of the people there. You start building these little networks. So we have one success. Let's us build on more successes. So start to do that. Get to know people and let them get to know you. That might mean that you have to let people know your real names, and you might not be able to wear a wig. Just FYI. The next thing is you're going to have to start to define your achievable goals. Now, one thing that makes activism really difficult is that when you come in, very frequently you've had something traumatic happen to you or a family member, and you think, the world absolutely needs to change, and you come in with sort of these absolutist goals. What you need to do in order to be successful is to define a small, achievable, incremental, defensible goals that everybody believes in and can work on together. Now, what that's going to mean for you is that sometimes you're going to have to compromise with other people. In some of the legislation that I supported that regulates medical care, there are some of the parts in that I don't wholly agree with. But what you have to ask yourself is, compared to the status quo, will this change be closer to the world that I want to see or further from the world that I want to see? And if it's closer to the world that you want to see, you have to compromise to help accomplish it. Be consensus-minded. Figure out what is so important to you that you can't bend, and if that's not going to work with other people, maybe find others that you can. And if you have people in your group who cannot find consensus with you, you might have to give them that same sort of encouragement to find a different group. But if you're getting tied up arguing with each other, then you're spending your energies fighting with yourself, but instead work towards putting your energies towards the world that you want to change. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. This is absolutely key. You need to figure out how to leverage existing networks. So there are already activists who are out there who are interested to hear what you want to work on. They are very busy. They're not going to be able to drop everything that they want to do and put your needs first, but they will absolutely help introduce you to people who can help you meet your goals. Right before my talk, one of the mothers who is here today, I'm sorry I don't see you. Oh, wait, can you raise your hand? I can't tell. Came up and said, thank you. Came up and said, tell people you need to get on a first name basis with your legislator. You do. You need to be able to, whether it's on your school board, whether it's in your legislature, whether it's your senator, figure out how to either personally spend time talking to them and getting to know them, or make friends with somebody who has already done that. In some cases, it might mean hiring a lobbyist. That's one of the things that the group that I have worked with has done. The parents have gotten together, pooled their money, and hired somebody who has these relationships. But you're not going to be able to get your legislation passed if you don't know anybody. So figure out who has those relationships and start leveraging them. I believe that the most powerful thing that we've been able to do to get any of this legislation passed is to just be able to sit down and explain our case to somebody who can either sponsor the bill or support it in committee. So get those relationships built. So it's not enough just to get access to them, though. You need to be able to present to them enough information that they can understand your position and not be overwhelmed by it. If you were to take in total all of the ideas that we've heard over the last day and a half and go straight out to your normie friend and say, here's everything that I learned this weekend, they're going to think you're crazy. There are too many ideas, and we have way too much context to be able to directly give this to our representatives and have them do something with it. So when you have built that opportunity to meet one-on-one with your representative, with your school board, keep in mind that they don't know anything about this issue except for maybe what they have read in the New York Times or the Washington Post or Scientific American, or whatever sort of a common outlet. They're not going to be very educated on this. Whatever they do know is only going to be half of the story. So prepare a pitch, tiny amounts of information, don't use jargon, and give them the problem here. Here's my problem statement when I'm talking to a legislator, which is that the way that gender medicine is delivered to all of the patients right now, but particularly young patients, does not work, and it needs to be fixed, and we need your help to fix it. So give them that sort of thing that they can understand. For the sports bills, it's unfair for boys to be playing in girls' sports. Don't start with all the data, the copious data that proves that it's unfair. Start with something that they can understand, and that then you can support later with your data. You don't fire it at them like a cannon, because it's going to hit them and knock them over, and they're not going to be with you. Bring handouts that help support your point. These should be documents that you work on so that the legislator staff, unless it's like a small and local office, almost certainly this is going to be handed off to a staff member to try to process. Make sure that it is written and created for that audience. How do I help somebody who has no background on this or wrong background on this understand my point in a way that's fair? And so some of this might be taking on other people's positions and saying, here's what they truly believe, here's why they're wrong. So you are an activist, but make it something that invites people to be curious to learn about your point instead of demanding that they agree with you. So then sustain engagement. So supposing that your legislation gets written as a bill, right? That's already a huge thing. You have a bill written, somebody's sponsoring it, it's going to go to committee. So this is where my intensive training as a child on Saturday mornings has really helped. The bill goes into committee. It might not even be heard in committee. So contact the sponsor, contact the author and say, hey, what can I do to help make sure that this gets heard in committee? Make sure that you're still visiting other people who are in the committee that it gets assigned to and writing to them or calling them or getting time with their staff members and saying, this is really important to me. Maybe somebody who's on the committee doesn't understand it very well. How can I help move this forward? You have to stay engaged with your network. Keep your spirits up. Keep calling your friends, asking them, hey, has there been any progress on this? The group that I am involved in, we have an Apple Chat thing that we get updates all the time about the legislative updates. So it's not enough just to get the ball going. You have to keep pushing. It takes a lot of energy. These legislators are so busy, and unless you're constantly reminding them, help move this forward, it's going to get lost. So you have to be persistent. Overcoming partisanship. So I've heard a number of things over the last couple of days. Michael Schellenberger described himself as a left UG. Jamie Reed talked about being a radical and stressing the importance of making sure that we have the center. I want to do something here. I want people to clap, not super loud, but if you, moderates, you're going to have to pick one of these, but if you are aligning yourself on the right, if you're Republican, if you're conservative, can you just sort of clap a bit here? Okay. That's great. I hear, well, we'll compare this. This isn't a contest, please, guys. If you are left-leaning, a Democrat, Labor, if you're towards that, could you please give a clap? Okay, you know what? That's almost half and half. I think that's like a 40-60 split, right down the line. What? No. I already warned you. If you're a moderate, you have to pick one of those. You have to listen. Okay. Now we just talked about those alignments. So we are going to do one more clapping. If you believe, like I do, that people should be protected from predatory clinicians that cause permanent changes to people's bodies without any accountability, if you believe that policy should be on the basis of sex first and maybe gender expression but not gender identity, if you believe that sports should be fair, if you believe that we are under threat societally from identity politics that threaten the liberal order, that's your alignment. Will you clap with me? Well, that's all, y'all. We need to put our parties aside. We need to put our political orientations aside. We don't have to forget them, but we are all together on this issue. And if we allow the narcissism of small differences to divide us, we will never be able to make the progress that we need to reinforce our institutions and reinforce our policy and law to keep things sane or to recover the ground that we have already lost. So I want to really persuade you, really convince you that you need to talk to Democrats, you need to talk to Republicans, and you need to put the party politics aside to make progress on this issue. It is absolutely critical. So how are we going to get involved? You have to network at this event. Join online communities, right? So folks who are at home watching this, you can do this right now. If you do it in the room, you're going to look obvious. But if you're at home, open up a browser window, look at some of the groups that are affiliated with GenSpect, and if you haven't yet, join the mailing list. Start reading and start getting involved. Konstantin Kisin at ARC this last week, you might not have seen this, but he made this really strong point saying, if you have wealth, if you have money, there is no greater cause than to defend our norms, to defend our liberal norms, to keep what we have safe. So if you have the money that you can give, find these groups that you believe in. It's not going to be every single one of them, but find the ones that really align with what you care about and give them some money. So in summary, make these connections. You have these opportunities. Work towards achievable goals incrementally. Leverage these existing networks. You're not a lone wolf. You're going to have to find ways to get to your legislators. Craft effective pitches and keep your engagement sustained. Thank you.